there, and welcome to this talk. I called it Jakarta EE Core Profile. And I don't think we will fill the entire hour, but I'll flip through some slides and maybe do a demo. And then we can have a discussion and talk about it afterwards. So just feel free to ask as many questions as you want, but I'm not sure if I'll manage to monitor the chat during my talk, so it could be just save them up for afterwards. Some words about me. My name is Ivar Grimstad. I'm the Jakarta EE developer advocate at Eclipse Foundation. You can see my Twitter, GitHub, and LinkedIn here, so feel free to contact me and shoot me any questions you would like, and I'll do my best to answer them. I'm a Java champion. I'm a member of the Java Community Executive Committee as a representative of Eclipse Foundation. And I'm also involved in various of open source projects within the Eclipse Foundation and also within Apache. And I also run a Java user group here in Malmö in Sweden. So enough about me. Let's go and have a look at Core Profile. And Jakarta EE Core Profile, the first question you probably or should ask when you hear about this profile is why? Why are we doing another profile? Isn't it enough with the profiles we have, and or isn't the platform good enough as it is? Why are we doing a new core profile? And let's have a look. So the entire Jakarta EE platform is often mistakenly called as the full profile, but it's actually not a profile. That is the Jakarta EE platform, and that is everything that is included within the Jakarta EE platform. And these are the specifications that are targeting Jakarta EE 10. It's very similar to what is currently in Jakarta EE 9, but you can see there are some updates, and all the blue specifications are receiving updates between 9.1 and 10. And those with a .0 after in the version number, those are major updates. And those with a .1 after are minor updates. And we do semantically version these specifications. So a major updates may contain breaking changes. A minor update will not. So it gives an indication of where we're going with Jakarta EE 10. But as you can see, it's a pretty large set of specs. And currently, these are the implementations that implement the platform for Jakarta EE 9.1. And we expect this list to grow. For EE 8, it's even bigger. And we also expect these same players to go on with Jakarta EE 10 platform. So if we take this set of specs and kind of gray out the ones at the side here, the ones that are more kind of enterprisey directions, like the batch support and messaging and mail and that those kind of specifications, which are more kind of targeted bigger applications, and just focus on what's left. And those are the ones that are currently in the web profile. So we do have a profile already. We have the platform, which is everything, and then we have a subset, which is the web profile.
Hey, Ivar, sorry for interrupting you. We can't see your slides.
Oh, you can't see my slides. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me share again. Let me see. I'll share it. There you go. That was a mistake. It's a good thing that we have some extra time. There you go. So I think I'll back a little bit back. So you can get the full context. So I'm very sorry about that. The first a couple of slides were just the sort of introductory slides, and you can find me in my profile here if you want to find the Twitter and that kind of stuff. So let's continue here with the platform. So as you can see, these, I won't repeat everything, but these blue boxes are the specifications that are being updated in Jakarta EE 10. And you can see there are plenty of them that have major updates, and a couple of them have minor updates. And here is the list of the compatible products for the 9.1 platform. And as you can see, there are 7 of them. And we expect all of these to be 10 as well. And this is the part where you kind of, if you look away from the ones that I'm graying out here, the more enterprisey things like batch and mail and messaging and that kind of things, and we focus on the web profile, and that brings us back where we were. And as you can see, this is a subset of the platform. And for the web profile, we have these implementations currently on 9. On 8, there are even more. And this is kind of a misleading picture as well, because everyone who implements the full platform, they also by extension implement the web profile. But here are the ones that are certified on web profile alone. And you can see 3 of them are also listed as a platform compatible. Only Apache Tommy here are only web profile. But you can see that it is the same players, and it's kind of the same sort of products. It's the application servers that we are pretty familiar with. And that is how the web profile and the platform has worked since Java EE 6. The web profile is more targeting the web applications. It's you can create web UIs and RESTful web services and all kind of web things, and you have the extra enterprise, a little bit heavier stuff for the platform. But if we take away the stuff here that is targeting more or less the web UI thingy, and that is the majority of these specs, then we're left with a stack of specifications that are limited to creating RESTful endpoints. And these are the RESTful web services, the JSON processing and binding. You have annotations, interceptors, dependency injection, CDI, and a new spec called config. And these are the specs that we expect to be bundled together as the Jakarta EE 10 core profile. And you can see there are minor updates to some of the specs here. And there are a new spec called config, and also a sort of new one called CDI Lite 4.0, which is actually a profile, if you like, of CDI. So it kind of takes away some of the features of the entire CDI stack and provides you with a lighter version that is suitable for core profile. And I'll get into exactly what that is. So you can say the mantra or the reasoning behind Jakarta EE Core Profile is to target smaller runtimes. And that means that potentially, we're not saying that it will be so, but potentially smaller runtimes like Helidon, Quarkus, Micronaut, and you name it, may be Jakarta EE 10 Core Profile compatible, because these products are not focusing on the stuff that web profile or the platform is focusing on. So they would never be, or you should never say never, but they most likely wouldn't be compatible with web profile or the platform. But when we have offered the core profile, you can have a possibility of these being filing for compatibility there. So let's go and look at some of the specs in the core profile. And I'll start with the new one, the config specification. And Jakarta Config will provide portable configuration from environment-aware sources. And you can find everything about it, and this goes for all specifications, and I'll repeat it throughout this presentation. It's under jakarta.ee/specifications/config. That's where you can have the starting point for figuring out every resources around Jakarta Config. And Jakarta Config will provide something like this. It's not necessarily it's going to be exactly like this, but most likely it will be very much like this. And if you are familiar with or have used microprofile config, you will see that this is identical. And why are we doing this? And will it be identical? The question, the answer to the second one is, yeah, not really, but probably very much. And why are we doing this? That is because config is something that has been requested in Jakarta EE for a very long time. And it has been provided by microprofile previously. And the people behind microprofile and the people behind Jakarta EE is the same people. And they figure out that, okay, this is getting something stable. We can just put it in Jakarta EE and microprofile can rely on it. We'll define the core profile, and microprofile can say that, hey, we implement core profile and something more. And that is also the reasoning behind core profile, is to provide a way for these smaller runtimes that are currently implementing microprofile and the required specifications within Jakarta EE to just be relying on a profile within Jakarta EE, and that is the core profile. So we want to, with config, provide the same functionality as microprofile config does. Most likely it will be the same sources that are used as the base for Jakarta config. And there will be some smaller additions, like, for example, they are currently discussing a tree structure of the property configurations, and also a meta model for configuration data. So it will be a little bit more targeted and the way things are done in Jakarta EE, but it will be very similar and with microprofile config, and the microprofile implementations will pick it up. So let's look at CDI, which is also another key thing within the core profile. And CDI Lite is a version of CDI that is designed to work in a little bit more restricted environments. You can find it under Jakarta EE/specifications/CDI. And with a little bit more restricted environment, I'm talking about environments where you want to do the ahead of time compilation and build native images using, for example, Graal VM. And that means that we need to change a little bit of how CDI works, because CDI is very dynamic in nature, and especially the CDI extensions, which are read and configured at startup time of the application. So there is a need for a new extensions API, so it's possible to generate this ahead of time, and also to make this a little bit easier, also change the beans.xml behavior. So the default is different from today, but these are some of the changes that are being investigated and done. But mostly it's, in a short word, it's to rip out the dynamic features of CDI and provide a way of doing it that will enable ahead of time compilation. The other parts of CDI and the old extension API will still be there in the CDI 4.0, but it will not be part of the CDI Lite, which is kind of a subset of CDI. Jakarta RESTful Web Services, originally they were planning a 4.0 release, which would include more potentially backwards incompatible changes, but they decided to stick with a 3.1 release. And this Jakarta RESTful Web Services 3.1 will update the API with features requested by the community, but it will also be backwards compatible, so it won't remove anything which was planned for 4.0. And you can find it under specifications/RESTful WS. One of the things they are doing here is to deprecate the kind of proprietary at context and replace it so you can use the CDI version at inject, for example, for URI info. But since this is not backwards incompatible, it's only deprecated in this version and will be removed in a later version, potentially 4.0. And also some other adjustments to the Java SE bootstrapping and other smaller changes, and also support for multi-part content for the RESTful endpoints and those kind of things. The JSON specification, JSON processing, and JSON binding are also minor updates, and they will provide features requested by the community, smaller things to make everyday life easier for developers. I won't go into detail of these here. The ones in gray here, annotations, interceptors, and dependency injection, are kind of foundational specifications. These will not receive any updates for this release. They will stay as they are because they are stable. There are no really requested features there, so there are no reason to update them. So they will be as they were in Jakarta EE 9. This is not related directly to the core profile, but I'll go through one of the specs in web profile as well, and that is security. And if you're interested in more about security, you should come to our session later today. It's at 4 Central European time, where I'm doing a co-speaking talk with Werner Kyle. So please do mark it in your calendars and join there if you want to know more about security. The security 3.0 in Jakarta EE 10 will keep adding features and evolve the API, which has been started with version 1.0 and 2.0. You can find everything about Jakarta EE security under Jakarta EE/specifications/security. Some of the things that are in the pipeline for security 3.0 is to add support for additional authentication mechanisms such as OpenID Connect and OAuth 2, and also client certification and digests. It will also be extended the functionality around the authentication mechanism, so you can have configure a authentication mechanism per URL rather than per application as today, and also have a more flexible choice of authentication mechanisms, as well as having multiple of them within the application, or for different use scenarios. And also build on the CDI integration, such as that will also load down the road. But as I said, if you want to know more about security, come to our session at 4. So how's the timeline looking? I've gone through the core profile and some of the reasoning behind it, and Jakarta EE 10 is planned to be released in Q1 2022, which is in a couple of months. And currently we are in the development and starting to create milestones of the specifications. So it's kind of nearing the end of the development cycle of the Eclipse Foundation specification process. And we are expecting the release reviews for the individual specifications to start around October 15th, which is next week. And these release reviews will continue going on throughout October and November and potentially December as well. And then we will kind of tie everything together, get the TCKs to work as they expect, and test everything for the different profiles and also the individual components. And the plan is to do that from the release review starts in October, and that work will be ongoing until we are able to release in Q1 2022. And I hope to be able to announce a more pinpointed date a little bit later, but currently we're saying Q1 to have our options open. So other updates in Jakarta EE 10 is that we are for Jakarta EE 10, we are compiling all the API sources to the language level of Java SE 11. That means that these specification projects are able to use everything up to Java SE 11 within their APIs. So you won't be able to use the Java 17 features in the API, for example. We will also compile these to Java SE 11 bytecode level. But what's important here is that we will ensure that the TCK can run with Java SE 11 and above. And that means we are going to test it with Java SE 11 and 17 and make sure that the TCK can run on 17, which means that you as an app developer can always use Java SE 17 if you want to. You have to use at least 11, but you can use 17 if you want to, and if the runtime supports it. And that's kind of the important thing here, is that if a vendor comes forward with a product that supports a newer Java SE version, the TCK should run with it, and you should be able to certify with it and say that, hey, we run on 17. And that opens up for a very flexible solution for app developers. You can choose the implementation that supports the Java SE feature that you want to use. As you probably know, in 17, the Java SE Security Manager was deprecated. So down the road, it will be removed. And this has some implications on Jakarta EE. And we will address this in 10 to say that, hey, be aware of this. We're not going to do anything about it right now because we cannot see the future, so we cannot ensure that the TCK runs on, or the project runs on, anything above 17 at the moment. But we will have it on a radar, and also we're investigating the implications that it actually has, so we can be prepared when it is removed in the future, whether that's in 18, 19, or version 21 of Java. That remains to be seen. So we will also work closely with the folks at OpenJDK to make sure that we are able to cope with it. The release cadence of Jakarta EE is sort of going on a, I don't want to say yearly cadence because we haven't defined the release cadence yet, but we have released a version of Jakarta EE every year, and with 10, it's 3 times in a row. So we are approaching a sort of yearly release cadence. Now, what's also important or interesting is the discussions we had around whether we should support Java 17 or not, or which level of the APIs for this Jakarta EE 10 release, is that we kind of are looking at maybe we should tie it a little bit up to the Java SE releases, so that we kind of support the previous release, LTS release of Java SE. So since Java SE moves from a 3-year LTS cadence to a 2-year cadence, that could be interesting for Jakarta EE as well for the major releases, but that remains to be seen. We're at the moment happy we are producing releases with the cadence we have right now. Another long-running goal is to decouple the TCK, so we don't have this massive TCK project, which kind of it's hard to maintain for the specification project. So we are setting up a structure where we are modernizing the technologies a little bit and enabling the projects to pull out their portions of the TCK in a way that is possible to pull back in when we want to test the platform or the profiles. So it's done in a very controlled way, and we won't be done with it by 10. But there are some of the specifications are pulling out the TCK and then feeding it back into the TCK project. So we have full confidence that backwards compatibility where required is kept. So the current release of Jakarta EE is 9.1, and it runs on SE 11. You can certify on 11. I saw yesterday that Wildfly actually certified on 17, so it's possible to certify on 17 as well. The key things around EE9 was to lower the entry barriers, to make it easier for new players to enter the market. We wanted to make it a platform for innovation, and seeing from how many specifications that are being updated for 10 with major versions number as well, kind of shows that we succeeded there. We also wanted to make it easy to migrate, so we didn't want so many changes in 9, and that's kind of why it's bottled up for 10. And that is due to the namespace switch from JavaX to Jakarta. And that was the main theme of Jakarta EE 9. That was the switch from JavaX to Jakarta. And why should you care about this namespace switch? And why should you care now? Well, you've probably seen that Spring as a version 6 and Spring Boot 3 will have a baseline based on Java SE 17 and Jakarta EE 9. And they are planning it in Q4 2022. So that is end of next year. So by end of next year, if you want to keep staying on the Spring latest version of Spring Framework, you will have to do this namespace switch on the parts of your code that are exposed to the JavaX namespace. And I guess that is pretty common, because many of the specifications of that Spring is built on and uses are kind of rippling through to the application user. So there is something to be aware of there. And they've actually done a lot of this namespace switch in a commit done. It says 4 days ago here, but that's not true, because that was 4 days ago when I took this screenshot. So it's probably a couple of weeks ago that they did the Jakarta EE 9 migration in Spring Framework in the code base there. So it's possible to do, and you can see there's a lot of files changed, well, you just got to do it. Also, if you're not using Spring, but you're using Jetty, Tomcat, or Hibernate, well, all of these are also, if you want to stay on the latest version, you're going to be exposed to the namespace change. So even if you're not using Jakarta EE, or think you're not using Jakarta EE, even if you're not using Spring, but you're deploying a simple application to Jetty or something, you're probably going to be exposed to the namespace change anyway. So I think we are halfway through, so I can do a short demo. It's I was hoping by now that I would have something core profile related, but as you see, the core profile is still sort of being defined, and there are no runtimes starting to support it yet. So core profile, I don't have any demos for core profile, but I'll show something else instead. One thing I didn't mention is also that we are planning the platform and web profile for Jakarta EE10 to be released in Q1 next year. Core profile may be released a little later. And this is something entirely new in Jakarta EE, that we release profiles independently. And that is also some of the structure that we have set up to be able to have this flexibility. So it could be that a core profile will make it when the platform is released, or it could be released a little bit later. And then in the next version of Jakarta EE, we'll pick up the additions that core profile brought to the table. So I'll do a short demo. I won't do the entire demo that I'm usually doing here, but I have an application on the JavaX namespace, and I'll show some options how you can migrate them to the Jakarta namespace. And I've created this application here, which is a layered application. Is using a database where it has a message. Is using Jakarta persistence to access the database, Jakarta enterprise beans, just because, and a Jakarta REST endpoint producing JSON, and also have a CDI extension there that prints to the log. And if you want to do this manually, there are a lot of things to consider. So the first step you got to do is to update the Jakarta EE version in the pom.xml. And this will create a lot of compilation errors. So you will need to fix the import statements in your application. That is kind of the easy part, because the IDE will detect it automatically. Then you have the other things that you're more likely to figure out at startup or at runtime, and that is the XML schema namespaces have changed. So if your application server is picky on the XML schema namespaces, you may have to change these as well, or you have to change these as well. You may perfectly well use all the XML files without specifying the schema namespaces, and that's fine. But then you won't have the additional support that the namespaces gives you when for code completion and that kind of things. You also will have to rename the properties that are prefixed with JavaX that are kind of recognized by Jakarta EE, and rename them to use Jakarta rather than JavaX. And this is something you probably won't discover until runtime, unless you're aware. There are also some bootstrapping files like the CDI extensions. I'll show that. And also you need to verify the data and the dynamic content in case you're kind of dynamically building up some class names or properties with JavaX. Then you would have to fix those dynamic contents as well. What you could do is, if you don't have the source code, is to do some transformation. And there are two products out there. It's the Eclipse Transformer that will transform the binaries or the WAR files for you, or the jar files, and also the Apache Tomcat migration tool that will also do this for you. So it's worthwhile trying out these tools if you don't have access to the source code, or you need to have something transformed, and just try it out before you do the actual migration. There are some things you need to be aware of with the transformers, and that is that they don't do the namespaces for XML schemas. They do rename the bootstrapping files, but both of them don't necessarily change the propertiness. The Apache tool does, the Eclipse Transformer currently doesn't, at least the version I tried out. So there are some things you probably need to check out, and it could be causing you some issues. So the safest thing is, if you're able, is to migrate the entire source code. And that sounds like a lot of work, but luckily you have support of the IDE. And I'll demo this migration from Java EE to Jakarta EE, or from Jakarta EE 8 to 9 in the IDE. So here I have the application. I'm using the transformer Duke application, and this is the application I showed you in the slides. It has the REST resource that produces the JSON message. It uses the Duke service EJB to call the repository, and it, whatever it finds from the repository, it just takes the first one. Otherwise, it shows an undefined message. And the Duke's repository uses the criteria builder and Jakarta persistence to just find all messages from the database. And if you notice, also I have this @Duke's annotation, which is just a simple annotation and a extension associated with it. So I'll just observe this annotation and print the message at startup time. Now I'm using the transformer Duke because of the namespace. So here I have a persistence XML, but I'm actually not using the namespaces. What you need to be aware of if you're using the namespaces, like I have this in this complete Duke application, which is, it's exactly the same application. Here you can see the old namespaces is jcb.org. The new one is jakarta.ee. So you need to replace jcb.org with jakarta.ee. And also, I have this bootstrapping file called JavaX Enterprise Inject SPI extension, which has the class that are being the CDI extension. So let's take this one and go to the refactor menu in IntelliJ here and click migrate. And when I click migrate, I get some options up here, and one of them are Java EE to Jakarta EE. And here it says that I can do just the entire project or a module. And one thing I need to remember before I start this one is that I have to add the dependency of the target. So in my POM file here, I'm using Jakarta EE 8. So what I'm going to do is to also add the dependency for Jakarta EE 9.1.0. And then I'll just reload this project. There you go. And while it's reloading, you can see, if I didn't show that all the import statements in my current is JavaX. So it's still in the Jakarta EE 8 namespace. So I'm wondering why it failed now. Okay. So if I go in there and I do the migration, and I choose the transformer Duke and run this transformation, it will then come up with some 21 results here around. So I'll just do the refactoring and look at the results. So what you can see here is that all of my classes has now been changed to Jakarta version of the APIs. So what I can do now is to actually just remove the old Jakarta EE 8 dependency. And since we're adventurous, let's go with Java 17 as well. Just reload the project. And the migration tool will not change the bootstrapping file. So this is something I will have to rename manually. Jakarta. There we go. Oh, let's get it right. There you go. And when I've done that, we can also go and run this in Glassfish. And the Glassfish I have here is Glassfish 6.2.1. I'll choose the transformer Duke and run it there. And just deploy it. Let's see how this goes. So it's building. And there we go. And if we're lucky, it should write the message from the CDI extension. And there you can see it writes hi there. So the CDI extension works. And let's go and look at this in Glassfish. I know 6.2 and transformer. Is it transformed or transformer Duke? Hello. And you can see it says hello to Jakarta EE8, and that is because I haven't checked the dynamic data. So let's go and open the database and say select from greeting. There you go. And let's change the data to 9 of 1. There you go. And commit it. And it should read the correct data from the database. So it is fairly simple to do the transformation, especially if you're using them tooling. You can do it manual as well, but I recommend trying out this tool. So to sum up, Jakarta EE 9.1 brought the lower entry barriers as a platform for innovation. It's easy migration. The main theme of 9.1 was the JavaX to Jakarta namespace switch. And Jakarta EE 10 brings core profile and is kind of slimming down for the cloud. So it's enabling smaller runtimes and also enabling compiling to native. And the Jakarta EE Core Profile will look something like this. You can see the config has a little star there. And that is if it is deemed necessary to release Jakarta EE 10 Core Profile before config is finalized, then that is a possibility, and then release a core profile later when config is ready. But as it looks, it should be able to be a part of the core profile. And also we've ripped out the need to release all the profiles on the platform at the same time, so they can be released independently. You can always find everything about Jakarta EE at jakarta.ee. We have a new branded website up there, so it looks very nice, and you can find all the information there. And just add /specifications after Jakarta EE, and you can find all the specifications and all information about it. We have a blog aggregator called Jakarta Blogs, and you can add your own blogs there if you want, or read the ones that are being published. I have weekly hashtag Jakarta EE, so you can check out what I'm writing there and what's going on in the community. And that's it. So thank you very much for listening. And we have some minutes left for questions. So I'll just stop sharing here so I can see the chat. And then please feel free to either go on mute or and ask the questions, or to write them in the chat. And I'm sorry about the slide issue in the beginning. Do we have any questions? Okay, so feel free to reach out to me in any way you want. And
Ivar,
okay, there we have a question. Make graph.
Genau, yeah.
Yeah, will GraphQL be part of Jakarta EE Core in the future? It's hard to say. It could be. It kind of makes sense, but also maybe it shouldn't be part of a core profile, but a part of the web profile, maybe, or maybe we should look at how the web profile is it getting too big, too bloated? Should we split it up in different parts? But GraphQL is definitely something we could look at. Currently, there is a microprofile specification called GraphQL, which is a standalone spec in microprofile. So you can also use that one. But who knows in the future? If you really want it there, then join the project and make it happen.